Oh, there you are. I realized something had happened, so I brought along a nurse.
Crazy.
What happened?
Well, let's see. We're supposed to perform maintenance on gas compressor A. So, a colleague and I worked all night establishing up cutoffs to depressurize the compressor and flush it out with nitrogen. The cutoff to gas compressor B, which was under pressure, was supposed to be made with a double block and bleed. The volume between the block valves was not depressurized along with the rest of compressor A.
The flushing plan actually been prepared?
No, but I must have done it at least 100 times before. I figured I would just depressurize the compressor using a hose attached to the bleed nozzle and bleed it off overboard on the cellar deck. I was about to put out the hose when you came and offered to help.
I took over for you, getting the hoses ready, while you went back to open the 2 bleed valves. You came down toward the cellar deck, right?
Yeah.
So I hold up my hands to protect my face, and it hits me. Yeah, and I ran down here to ice down my hand.
Ooh, this doesn't look too good. We better check if it's broken.
The direct cause of this incident was that the bleeding hose was pressurized before it was completely let out and the end cap was removed. The hose was not designed for that kind of pressure, and since the end cap was still on, the hose tore open, causing it to whip around violently. Was this only human error? The investigation uncovered several underlying causes for this incident. First, based on what you know now, why do you think this happened? Discuss this with your colleagues before you go on. Even take another look at the incident if you like. This is avoided if a flushing plan had been prepared and followed. Good between the process operator and the technical supervisor prevented the process operator from pressurizing the bleeding hose before it was properly let out, with the end cap removed. Communication was absent in this instance. If the process operator had depressurized through the flare stack instead of into the air, this injury would have been prevented. To learn more about how these barriers could have prevented this injury. The nitrogen flushing were marked on the valve configuration plan. The volume to be flushed and depressurized was not indicated. Neither the bleed nozzle marked on the plan. A plan contained this information and indicate connection points for flushing and which parts of the installation should be depressurized and flushed with inert gas. A proper plan would have provided the process operator with clear instructions for what to do, and sections of the installation he should have depressurized and flushed. Communication between the process technician and the technical supervisor prior to the incident. With the bleed valves, the process operator should have asked. Bleed should not have been opened before the technical supervisor confirmed with "Yeah, bleed, and the valves." This confirmatory communication shall be used during critical work and lifting operations. Understandings, leaving no doubt as to what operations have been completed and what needs to be done. Those over the rail should be avoided. Usually, on newer bleed installations, connections run from the bleed nozzle through a permanent conduit system or through a hose at maximum nominal pressure to the flare stack. This element in the controlling documents, but this kind of design can significantly reduce the risk associated with a local bleed. Lack of planning and simple risk assessment for routine jobs is often a main cause of unwanted incidents offshore. How can you and your colleagues prevent unwanted incidents for a double block and bleed in your workplace? Click on the various pictures to find questions you can discuss with your colleagues. Can you demand a flushing plan for this kind of maintenance job? And what improvements can you make when using a flushing plan? How should you communicate with your colleagues when performing similar maintenance jobs? And how can you improve this kind of communication? How would you describe best practice for a double block and bleed? And how can this be implemented as a main practice where you work? How can you implement bleeding a double block to the flare stack as a best practice? The investigation group's recommendations for measures to prevent similar incidents from happening again were to improve the use of flushing plans, define and implement training in the correct method for a double block and bleed, improve on and train at repeated confirmatory communication, and, finally, establish a written best practice for double blocks and bleeds. Are these initiatives that you can work with as well?